Hello there, welcome back to the booth here at the Magic the Gathering World Championships of the Martial Cyclists. That's Paul Cheon. Thanks so much for coming along and joining us for this 3-day celebration of the highest competitive level of our game. We're entering into round number 2 here in the building. This is still Booster Draft, and we're going to be watching this round. Let's take a look at that. We've got Braun-Duin, who just came off of a nice win there in that first round. We got to catch the end of Game 3 against him and Greg Orange. On the other side of the table will be Javier Dominguez from Spain, who we actually also got to see him win his game, although we only came in for just a second because he was on the verge of doing so as we popped in. But both of them got a chance to just get a little bit of a feel for what they're playing here, Paul. Javier is playing blue-black with a bit of red, and then it's straight white-black on the other side of the table for Brian.
Yeah, and Brian, you know, throughout the course of that game, we saw a lot of really powerful spells in his deck. He had that Rite of Bells and Lock, he had a decent curve, he had removal, and on top of that, you know, at the end, I don't know if everybody saw, but he was holding an Ariel as well in his hand. So very, very solid white-black deck. And on the flip side, we have Javier Dominguez, which I think his draft went far less smoothly. Where he's a 3-color control deck. It's a little bit clunky. He's splashing red for Shivan Fire with no mana fixing, his mana fixing being just the 3 copies of Divinations in his deck. So it's not always reliable as a removal spell. And look at Brian. You know, we talked about how Javier's deck might struggle against an aggressive curve, and Brian with just basically a constructed level curve here. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah,
right off
1,
the bat.
2.
Okay, to be fair, when he tapped 3 mana, I thought it was going to be like a Trapper or something. But you know what? Look, Javier's playing a Divination here and discarding.
Yeah. Oh, this is awful here for Javier Dominguez. He is having a very rough go in this early, dealing with this quick start from Brian. The other thing about Brian is that we do see he has actually in his deck 2 copies of that Dauntless Bodyguard, so not even that uncommon for him to see a turn 1 play like that.
Wow, and he discarded a 2nd Divination. It'd be really hard for me to do that.
That's sacrilege.
Yeah. I'll take it to my grave.
Oh, he gets in for 5. He's going to knock Javier down to 9
goodness.
life, and then play 2 more 2-drops. This might be over.
Yeah, there's just nothing.
He has lethal.
Oh, he can play a Winddrake.
All right, so it might take 1 extra turn unless, of course, Brian just has a removal spell.
What does he have up? He tapped 4 mana.
And there it is. That's a removal spell, and that is game. Wow, a clean turn 5 victory for Brian Braun-Duin.
Javier's like, that did not go according to plan right there.
And I think BBD might be thinking the literal opposite. Wow, that is an incredible curve out there from BBD, and I don't think it'll be typical. His deck is capable of such things, but still, that is not your average curve out for his deck.
Yeah, but you know, you did say he does have 2 copies of the Bodyguard, which does, of course, increase the chances of him drawing that, and he's just got a decent curve overall. So I think Javier's going to have a lot of trouble winning this match.
All right, well, Javier's going to be on the play for game number 2. We'll be back with that right after these messages.
Up your game with Ultra Pro Magic the Gathering accessories. Find the best Magic art on card sleeves, deck boxes, playmats, and more. Visit ultrapro.com to learn more and find a retailer near you.
Welcome back to the feature match area here at the Magic the Gathering World Championships. We're in Las Vegas, Nevada. Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Paul Cheon, and we are in the second round of the first draft here on day number 1. We'll be transitioning over to standard, not after this round, but after the next. But in the meantime, we've got some Dominaria draft rounds to bring you. Boy, if you got up for a minute on that first game, you missed it. BBD with a clean curve out, using up all of his mana, up to a blistering turn 5 victory for him. And Javier Dominguez can only look to the side in disgust as he shuffles up for game number 2. Now, his deck's a little slow. We saw him cast Divination, discard a card, which was another Divination, and then he only affected the board a single time before having his creature killed and his life total depleted to 0. He's going to be on the play this time, though, Paul, and maybe we'll be able to make a few adjustments to his sideboard. He does have the deck list of Braun-Duin as well, so he's been able to see his pool and get a good idea for what BBD's up to. Interestingly, he may overreact a little. BBD actually has a pretty good long game plan going with cards like Pegasus Courser, and you mentioned Ariel, Knight of Windgrace as a big finisher. I don't think that his deck is built to curve out that well every time, though it's probably somewhat close, so he's going to need to respect that possibility.
Yeah, I think BBD just has a very solid black-white historic themed deck. And, you know, Javier being on the play, though, does make it a lot better for him. You get to, you know, he doesn't have a lot of plays, but, you know, actually being on the draw and having Divination be your first play is quite bad because you have to discard. But being on the play means that you could just keep laying your land drops and play your threats. One of the most important cards in this matchup for Javier is drawing the Phyrexian Scriptures that he first picked in the draft.
That's right, and it looks like it's going to be tough to do this time because we see a mountain on turn 2 from Javier Dominguez, signifying he doesn't have the ability to play a swamp here. Surely he would have done so. He does, however, have a Voltaic Servant this time, and that can actually go a long way to helping keep his life total high. Braun-Duin's going to go for the attack anyway with his Mesa Unicorn, but a quick block from Dominguez keeps his life total at 20, while BBD's goes to 22.
Yeah, it's basically a free attack from Brian, gets to gain life. Javier is clearly playing a control deck, very unlikely to have a combat trick there to get rid of the Unicorn. Ooh, but Javier also with the free attack.
Boom.
As the Voltaic Servant does untap.
I can't believe this. Look at Javier's mana. He has 3 mountains in his whole deck. He's drawn 2 of them and no swamps.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure he has Scriptures in his hand too, by the way.
Right. Ooh, and that is Ariel.
Knight of Windgrace, this is one of the big bombs in the format. This is the type of card that if Javier cannot answer within the next 2 turns, could just completely take over.
Ooh.
And thankfully for him, he does have the answer. Deep Freeze is going to turn that thing into an abilityless 0-4.
Yeah, that's the most important thing because the Ariel was going to start pumping out a Knight every single turn. So very, very big play there from Javier. And BBD with a more, I guess, a draw we would more have expected from his style of deck.
Agreed.
You know?
Yeah. Maybe a 2-drop thrown in addition,
Right.
but yeah. And now all of a sudden Divination's looking very good, and he finds another, in fact, his 3rd mountain, but also not bad. He found a Shivan Fire, so that can, he'll probably not use that on the Unicorn for a while and save it rather for something more threatening.
Right, he's got that Servant in play, keeping the Unicorn at bay, and of course the Shivan Fire, you can kick it to get rid of a larger threat.
I like where Javier is here. Look, the non-blistering start from BBD and the combination of that with just the Voltaic Servant having now blocked for, what, 3 or 4 times, means that Javier at a cool 20 life looks like he's in good shape.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's get those blockers down. Amaranthine Wall now for Dominguez, and no attacks in sight here for Braun-Duin that are actually hit Javier.
Yeah, he's got just all the ground forces assembled. You know, we saw Brian's deck. He has lots of 2-mana 2/2s and 1-mana 2/1s, but, you know, they're not going to be able to get through this current board state.
Wow. Kind of an embarrassment of riches here for Dominguez. He finds an Academy Journey Mage, but I don't think he wants to cast it.
No, and he's got an Academy Drake as well, but I think he's waiting to hit that 7th land to be able to kick it and start attacking with a 4/4 flyer.
I think I just run it out there.
Just 3-mana 2/2?
Well, I feel
he doesn't have a lot of ways to win, though. So he might just need the 7-mana 4/4 flyer there.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
What does BBD have in his hand?
I have no idea. He's used barely any mana this whole entire game. It's stark contrast to the last one. And honestly, having flooded out a bit here, I don't know if a Skittering Surveyor is really what he wanted anyway.
Yeah. Let's see what he's working with here. Oh, yeah, very, very mediocre hand there. I mean, Gideon's Reproach and Seal Away are both answers to the Academy Drake, but at this point, BBD hasn't really put a lot of pressure on the board, and Javier Dominguez has a boatload of card draw spells in his deck. So the longer the game goes, the more it favors Javier.
Yeah, I like his chances a lot here.
Although he still hasn't found a swamp.
It's incredible that he hasn't found a swamp yet.
I'm very curious what his actual... I mean, he might have adjusted his mana base here because he needs to cast Shivan Fire earlier, but...
He only has 6 black-producing lands in the deck.
Oh, okay.
To be fair, he's running 8 island, so I think that Javier is of the divination as mana-fixing mindset.
Right, but...
but it's really not. He's got 5 swamp and a Memorial to Folly in his library. So his mana...
Not great.
It's actually bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's just bad.
He's even got 2 ops in his deck, and with 8 islands, you're not always guaranteed to have that island in your opener either.
That's right. So a little bit tough for Javier, especially when you consider, and I think this is sort of the thrust of our conversation here, is that really his most powerful card is Phyrexian Scriptures, which costs double black.
Right, and extremely unlikely to be able to play it on curve on turn 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, BBD's just going for the life total record here at the World Championship. He's up 35.
Oh, got to flip the piece of paper here. Too much life has been gained.
That's right. Even though Javier's still at 20 somehow.
Yeah.
Reasonable draw here for BBD, though. He does find Pegasus Courser.
We have a swamp sighting from Javier. Swamp number 1.
The game begins.
And BBD says the game begins. Pretty good. 6 cards in hand for Brian.
Yeah.
And he hasn't missed a land drop.
Yeah, he's got... I mean, as we saw before, he did have a Seal Away and a Gideon's Reproach, so this Drake not going to be doing a whole lot, as Brian currently has multiple answers to it.
I'm going to try to deal 4 damage to it.
But Javier's hand is still just loaded, but he's got several double black spells. He's got the Caligo Skin Witch, which he has no desire to play on turn without the second black source.
This play doesn't look great here for Javier either, though. He just lost his Windrake to Gideon's Reproach. He runs out the Academy Journey Mage, but it's not doing a ton here. It's going to set back BBD for a turn of using his Pegasus Courser, but he can just replay it and start getting busy.
And it would have only been 3 damage. I guess maybe Javier's thinking, I just have so many expensive cards in hand, I want to get it out there. But the Journey Mage, even as a board presence threat, it's not doing a whole lot because there's a deep freeze on that aerial. So the aerial just brick walls the Academy Journey Mage.
Yeah, which is, I kind of like just holding it in your hand, especially because I would assume if I'm in Javier's seat that I'm starting to try to craft this game around the Phyrexian Scriptures in my hand. Sure, he can't cast it yet, but he will be able to at some point.
Right.
And maybe you can get BBD to overcommit. Though, either Brian has a lot of reactive cards in his hand or he's just refusing to overcommit. Let's see what he's working with. Pegasus Courser we knew about. He's got Adamant Will, Seal Away, Invoke the Divine.
Invoke the Divine. That's the key card here. That's why he first led off with the Bodyguard to be able to prevent it from getting, for example, maybe Shivan Fire kicked on the following turn, and then followed that up with an Invoke the Divine.
Yep.
I mean, it must be suspicious, though, right? When your opponent goes, I'm going to Dauntless Bodyguard my creature with a removal spell that's already on it.
Totally. So now we have Aerial Knight of Windgrace back to active, and all of a sudden Javier Dominguez is looking down at that Phyrexian Scriptures, and it's not looking so good.
Yeah, now Javier needs to be able to remove it twice, as the Phyrexian Scriptures does destroy all creatures, but the ability of the Dauntless Bodyguard makes it so that he can protect the Ariel.
Perhaps a hint of desperation here from Javier. He's going to cycle Befuddle by just simply casting it on something that's not even in combat. He has now found his second black mana source, though. He's got a Memorial to Folly in his hand now, which is also key because it can get him back the Academy Drake, which, as you mentioned, is one of his few win conditions.
Right.
Another interesting sequence that we have here from Javier is that he has Rona in his hand. So he can do the Phyrexian Scriptures thing, right?
Yep.
And then, because Scriptures ends up in your graveyard by itself at the end, and then buy it back and do it again to try to work through this aerial.
Right.
I mean, that's a long-term, sketchy game plan, but
Yeah, but so if you look, actually, the sequencing here is pretty favorable for Javier. He does have that Academy Drake, which is a 4/4 on the battlefield. Next turn, he can set it up by playing the Phyrexian Scriptures, which will then put a +1/+1 counter on the Drake, which will mean that he will have a giant flying creature on the battlefield with the Phyrexian Scriptures resolving. And keep in mind, Javier's board will take Servant, Amaranth Wall, and an Academy Drake, which will be an artifact creature. So it's going to be basically a one-sided Wrath.
Yeah.
And the only thing that'll survive on Brian's side of the board will be the Ariel, along with the Skittering Servitor.
Well, you say that, but let's look at Javier's hand. He has actually found a Shivan Fire here as well, and he can use that on the Dauntless Bodyguard.
Oh, wow.
And then, unlock the full potential of his Phyrexian Scriptures here.
Absolutely.
So there's a pretty clean line of play here for Dominguez. And assuming that the whole Scriptures thing goes according to plan, it's going to work very well.
Right.
Oh, wait, is this interesting? Was that a Call the Cavalry there for Brian? Because that makes 2 knights. And Ariel has a second ability.
Right.
Where you can play black and tap, and she can basically have a number of knights do damage, kill a creature with power less than or equal to that number of knights.
Yeah, so if Brian does in fact play the Cavalry, Javier will be forced to fire off the Shivan Fire in response to keep Brian's knight count low.
Just to keep his Drake alive?
How many knights are on the battlefield right now? Is that a knight token?
There's 1 knight token, yeah.
Okay, so it wouldn't matter. He would have 5 knights on the battlefield.
Yep. No, I actually misspoke, Paul. Dauntless Bodyguard's a knight.
Yeah.
So there's 2.
So
that
there's
would
2.
be
So
4.
and then Ariel itself is a knight.
But she can't tap herself.
Right.
So
Oh,
he's gonna,
sure.
So he's going to have to use the Shivan Fire now to keep the knight count low, but that's also the target he wanted to do anyway.
Right.
Yeah. So this works out for Dominguez, at least currently.
And then he gets to actually pump. He gets to pump the Academy Drake
Out
with
of
the
range.
Scriptures out of the range. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, looks like the Scriptures' turn.
BBD's also looks like he's 1 mana short from being able to make a knight with Ariel this turn anyway.
Yeah.
After all that. So things still looking good for Javier Dominguez. And his Phyrexian Scriptures play. Now, it's taken him a long time to get to this point, but Scriptures looks extremely powerful here. So let's make that Drake into a dragon.
It's a 5/5 flying artifact creature.
Yep.
Now, BBD can still use the Ariel's ability to deal with, I guess, one of the artifact creatures that Javier has on the battlefield.
Yeah, you can tell a servant.
Right. As the Phyrexian Scriptures will destroy all non-artifact creatures. And keep in mind, players did have access to the deck list, so BBD is aware of Phyrexian Scriptures being in Javier's deck.
One interesting thing, too, is that BBD actually has 2 copies of Invoke the Divine in his sideboard. We've seen that he's already brought 1 in. Another one would be good right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Get rid of that Scriptures and flip the script back in the other direction.
And targets. This.
And yeah, as you mentioned before, Paul, he still has a viable target there. He can just take out the Voltaic Servant. Not a huge deal, but yeah, sure.
Right.
Value. What's the draw step here, though, for BBD? If he can find a knight just to cast, that would also work.
Yeah.
Ooh, was that Adamant Will? Because that would be very relevant here as well.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Adamant Will gives indestructible until end of turn as well, and he could use that to save Ariel and rebuild.
He could use it to save Ariel, rebuild, and on top of that, we know that Brian also has a Seal Away, which he can use to deal with that Academy Drake.
So things now all of a sudden looking okay for BBD again. This is getting really interesting.
Yeah. BBD with a decent amount of Wrath protection, actually. He's got the Bodyguards. He's got the Adamant Will.
And Ariel can easily win the game single-handedly if left unchecked. So his mind state is going to be revolving around keeping Ariel, Knight of Windgrace, alive at all cost. He's already had to save her from a deep freeze.
Right.
But he did that.
And Javier just making the blocks because, you know, BBD at this point has to attack with everything, as the scriptures will go off on the following turn, so might as well try to get in for as much damage as you can this turn. I would guess that he's very unlikely to put another creature on the battlefield unless it is an artifact creature.
Your turn. I haven't affected your upkeep.
He wants to play around a potential counterspell that Javier might draw.
Yeah, I think he's just going to Adamant Will right now.
+2 indestructible.
That's smart. It plays around a lot of things. It plays
Absolutely.
around another Shivan Fire, for example. So good, clean play here from Braun-Duin. And as you can see, this works out quite nicely for him. He's got Aerial Knight of Windgrace. He's got the seal away
Did
for
he
the big
draw
threat.
Syncopate?
Did he really?
I think Javier might have drawn Syncopate.
I wonder
So
if
this
BBD could just
upkeep play
pay
was
anyway.
just great.
1, 2, 3. I mean, BBD has a lot of lands. Oh, here's a Caligo's Skin Witch, though, for Dominguez. We'll see if Brian has planned accordingly for this type of thing. We see he's played most of his lands out. No, he's got 4 spells in his hand, so he can ditch perhaps the Honor Guard and the Pegasus Courser. if
Or
you'd like to
potentially
keep
the Quende if he wants to get in the air. And certainly keeping the seal away, as that is his answer to the Academy Drake.
Yeah, that's the one card he can't discard here.
Right.
The Honor Guard seems like an easy choice. And then, yeah, depending on how he sees this game playing out, Quende can be very powerful. But if he doesn't see himself getting through on the ground, then Quende's not as good.
Exactly.
I'll discard this too.
What did he get rid of? Well, I can
Kept the
see the
Quende.
Honor Guard. Oh, he did keep Quende.
It's like, all right, you use your Reproach.
And that's a big play there for Brian, because even though he's at 39 life, we mentioned it before, Dominguez doesn't have a lot by the way of win condition, and it's pretty tough to get it back from that point. Remember, Brian also gets to use Ariel's activated ability to make a knight here and start building out a huge board.
Yeah, Javier really needs to find an answer to that aerial. And I bet he's thinking, I drew so many answers to the aerial, but yet I still need to find more answers. You know, he does have a fight with fire that we know about. So that's something that he's really, really looking to draw here soon, or this aerial will be able to win the game by itself.
Yeah, the good news for him is that he actually has a few turns to find it thanks to this Amaranthan Wall soaking up a bunch of damage. And the fact that Fight with Fire can kill Aerial plus multiple knights means that even if it gets a little bit out of hand, it could come back for him.
Right.
So.
And he does have quite a few card draw spells in his deck. He's got multiple ops, 3 divinations, and a dark bargain. So he does have a lot of ways to find that Fight with Fire.
Is that a Darien archaeologist there for Brian?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, does he have anything?
Was that a Guardians of?
No, pass the turn.
I couldn't quite see it. He picked it up pretty quickly,
Yeah, I'm not
but I
sure what it
believe
was.
so.
Yeah.
It
Okay,
was a
let's-
Guardians of Koilos? Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Get some extra skittering surveyor value.
Yeah, the Darien Archaeologist is a very solid card, but it's really good when you're getting back a 5-drop.
Yeah.
All right, now this is that plan
Yep.
that we talked about before with Rona getting back Phyrexian Scriptures and now casting it
That's
thanks to her ability.
And then putting a counter on the Rona, of course. And Javier is at a pretty comfortable life total, so he will be able to deal with that aerial unless Brian draws
Bodyguard.
bodyguard number 2 here.
The fact that you can cast Rona and then cast the Historic spell right away is really problematic here for Brian. He doesn't even get a window to kill anything.
Right.
Oh, and look at this. Brian is actually going to use his aerial to take out the wall. Now, Javier can simply pay 2 mana to give it indestructible, but look, he's out.
Yeah.
So he can actually kill the wall here and get in for a big hit, though tick-tock.
Right. I mean, he doesn't want to add more to the board because of the sweeping effect, but yeah, that is a heads-up play from Brian. But it might not be enough. Javier just has so many different sources of card advantage in his deck with the Skin Witch and the Rona on top of all those card draw spells.
Yeah, even, I mean, the scriptures.
And scriptures
itself,
as well,
yeah.
right? Brian can deploy the Guardians here, as it will not die, as it is an artifact creature.
Guardians.
Yeah, he can also pick up Aerial if he wants, right?
On this.
Yep.
Pick this up.
He's not going to.
Huh.
Combat. I'll attack with these and before.
I'm a little surprised.
It
at
can
that.
bounce a historic card too, right?
Yeah, any historic card.
Yeah, we're looking at historic permanent. So yeah, he could have bounced Aerial. I think he just had it in his mind that he can just bounce Skitter. He's just going to bounce Skittering Surveyor for value.
Yeah. Yes, that is correct. 0 is a valid choice for X.
Alright, I'll tap
Huh.
0 and target this.
Can we block?
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't lethal, right?
That's also tap.
It's
I don't think
17.
so. I don't think so. Yeah, this might have been a small misstep.
And maybe he has a plan that we're not seeing. He may have just overlooked it, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you take 4 down to 13.
Because protecting Aerial, of course,
this dies.
is priority number 1 here for Brian Braun-Duin. And if he was able to just simply return it to his hand, let Friction Scriptures go to Chapter 2, and then just replay it, he would present that problem again for Javier.
Yeah.
But he chose not to do so. And he did get a decent little hit in. Javier's down to 13, it looks like, but
Yeah, this could. I mean, this is just going to swing the game. This effect right here.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a beautiful setup for Brian, too. He gets to play a 4/4 that survives in
Yeah.
exchange for his best card going back to hand.
I'm gonna pass the turn.
Let's see if he has anything else. Opt on end step for Dominguez.
Ooh,
Ooh, he kept it. That's scary. There's not a whole lot of cards that he really wants at this point. 2. I think he just missed it, Paul.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay, well, we are going to carry on then with Rona as the last card standing
Ooh,
here
it must have been
for
divination.
Javier. Oh, you know.
Ooh,
it
and
is.
that's another divination.
Now, Paul, I got to say, though, there's a lot of cards in the graveyard. Some have been exiled. There's a lot of lands on the battlefield. Like, how many cards does Javier have left?
Right.
And can he win? Is that Kazaroff, though?
Yeah, that is a Kazarov. I mean, I think Javier probably has just enough. He has the Kazarov. He's got that Memorial to Folly as well to get back the Academy Drake. So, you know, he's gonna have the ability to make multiple 4/4 flyers. And, you know, despite the fact that Brian's at 39, I think those are still going to be enough, unless Brian strings together a couple of more removal spells.
He's certainly going to need one for Kazarov because Kazarov gets out of hand very, very quickly. And with all that mana for Javier Dominguez, he can fire it off twice in a turn easily.
Yeah, if he finds land number 12, he's got 11 in play. He can activate Kazarov 3 times next turn.
Right, and Kazarov picks up counters at an alarming clip. If you're ever sitting across from it, it's like, wow, that thing's already a 7/7? Yeah.
Yep.
It can be the creature on the other side can be dealt damage for any reason.
Yep.
Not just from Kazarov. So combat triggers Kazarov, and all of a sudden he's huge. And even though BBD is at 39, Kazarov can take care of that life total very quickly.
And he did draw land number 12, so he now has 3 activations available for Kazarov.
Yeah, I think if I'm Dominguez, I just want to make sure that I don't lose to Gideon's Reproach here. Like, I just want to make sure that my Kazarov has a counter on it and I don't
Right.
get into some awkward situation. Just want to get that counter on. And I like this from
So,
Javier.
yeah.
Just main phase it. I mean, you can do it in response anyway, but still.
Right. And
don't
still
wanna
want to
open
keep
the
up.
door.
Still want to keep up Memorial to Folly in case somehow Kazarov still does happen to die.
Cards? 4.
Ooh, getting aggressive here.
I like it. Hey,
Yeah.
that life total. He's got a lot of work to do.
Sure does.
And
The
he's
Unicorn did a lot of work.
definitely. He's got BBD down to nothing. No relevant board state.
Yep.
And he says draw, go. Wow, Javier has really whittled himself right back into this game.
21.
And he's got a syncopate for approximately 17 or 12 or something, some ridiculous number. And Brian just needs to draw a removal spell. He can't even play any creatures. That's just actually making the clock quicker for Javier.
Yeah, you play Quende into this and you're not happy, camper.
12.
And the truth is that unless Brian can find a permanent answer for Kazarov, there will not be creatures that he can play and be happy.
Yeah.
I mean,
Javier,
he's got a handful of gasoline, but it doesn't matter because Javier is just controlling the board with triple Kazarov activation, and that's going to do it. Javier Dominguez says, "How about we play a long game?" And he wins that one.
I think he's got the advantage there.
Yeah.
Now, I think, you know, we were talking about the aerial play and how it could have hurt Brian's chances of winning there, or it definitely did. But given that Javier found that Kazarov, I don't think it would have mattered because he didn't have the removal spell. But now Brian's on the play, and he's just really hoping to be aggressive. I think, given the way that game played out, I don't know how Brian can configure his deck, but I think he's going to be looking to be as aggressive as possible, and that's probably the key for him to be able to win this match.
Yeah, I really like the Invoke the Divine. I think I would actually want both of them.
Right. I mean, we saw the damage that the Scriptures was able to do. And on top of that, Javier just randomly has artifact creatures, right? Using an Invoke the Divine on an Amaranth Wall is totally fine. And of course, there's also just the mana issues. You know, Javier could easily just lose. The deck can just lose to itself very, very easily.
Kind of often.
Yes.
Like, that mana does not look great. To recap here for those of you just tuning in, so Javier had a rough draft. I mean, it did not go smoothly. He's got 8 islands, 3 mountain, 5 swamp, and 1 memorial to Folly. So 8/6/3 mana base.
I'm surprised he's not playing 18 lands, actually.
I actually am too. You know why I think he's not? Because I think it's because of opt. Like, I think he's really thinking, okay, well, I'll just use my opt to find, you know, the things that I need or whatever.
That's fair. But he does have just a lot of stuff to do with his mana too, right? He's got a lot of card drop effects. He's got some kick. He's got a bunch of kicker spells, right? Multiple Academy Drakes, Fight with Fire. It's just like you cannot
Kazarov
afford
that
to
wants
miss a land
infinite
drop.
mana. Yeah.
Right.
He's got Fight with Fire, which is 9 mana with kicker and 2 red.
Right.
Like, he's
like never casting an Academy Drake for 3 mana either. So
no. He refused to.
Right.
Yeah. Rona, she wants a lot of mana, so yeah.
And one of your lands is a spell land.
Right.
Right. It's a Memorial to Folly.
Okay, well, it looks like we've got sideboarding. Oh, I spoke too soon. Javier changed his mind at the last second.
Yeah, I mean, I would guess that he probably did board out the Dark Bargain, especially on the draw. That's not the type of card that you want. He has enough ways to get card advantage. You know, honestly, what Javier wants is just to draw one of his 2-mana and 1/3s, just to be able to block the bodyguard that you know, BBD can potentially have turn 1, or his multiple 2/2s for 2.
Like, I'm not going to get too cute and say that the Voltaic Servant was the MVP of that game, because it was definitely Phyrexian Scriptures. But that Voltaic Servant on turn 2, I mean, that led us down a path where he could actually buy enough time to get to the part of the game that he wanted. And what a contrast, right? I mean, think back to game number 1. It was 5 turns. It was over. What turn was that?
Yeah.
20-something?
Did a lot of work.
Ever.
I mean, just look at the amount of life that BBD gained, right? And basically, Javier was just blocking with the Servant the entire time.
All right, we are underway. No 1-drop here from Brian Braun-Duin. And in fact, he has 2 swamps, no plains.
He's got the bodyguard, but no white source.
And look at that. There's
MVP.
the MVP. Yeah. Triple black into Surveyor. Okay, well, this makes sense. Now he's going to find his white mana, but woefully slow start here for BBD. And look at this,
just
Dominguez.
Grixis mana.
Grixis mana into Divination. He's just living the absolute dream.
This is, I mean, if your mana functions and you have a 2-drop, Javier's deck certainly has the power, right? He's got the late game, and BBD had a fairly slow start, so.
I would have super attacked first, by the way. Just the disrespectful attack for 1. I would have done it. Yeah. Complete free roll. Okay, well, now we're in business, because here's turn 4 Aerial Knight of Windgrace, and all of a sudden, Javier 1 turn late with the Divest.
Right, but I think I saw Fight with Fire in his hand.
Okay, if he has that, he's good to go. Though, now's a good time.
Yeah, but BBD's hand is pretty stacked here. That's a Vicious Offering, a Seal Away, and a Dark Bargain, along with that land. So, you know, BBD has a lot of gas, but a lot of those are reactive spells, right?
Yep.
You want to be proactive in this matchup because Javier just has. If you are not going to beat Javier in a game of attrition,
And there it is. Fight with Fire is going to say bye-bye to Aerial Knight of Windgrace. And boy, I like Javier's chances now. He's under absolutely no pressure at this point, and he knows in hand that BBD has no pressure coming. Now, Dark Bargain can find him some.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Careful.
Discard up planes. Play a planes, pass.
So nothing meaningful that turn there. So Javier gets another turn with no pressure.
Here we go.
And another divination. He is just
piling on.
loving this. Paul, do we need a jealousy meter alongside the?
Yeah, I was
advantage
actually
bar?
going to say the exact same
Are
thing.
you- yeah.
Just in my mind. Maybe I wasn't thinking jealousy meter, but in my mind I was like, damn, I'm jealous.
I was thinking that myself.
You're at 20 and you cast 2 divinations. I mean, come on.
Everybody in the chat's thinking the same thing.
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't like drawing cards?
Ugh.
9 cards. 6.
They say 9 cards?
I said you have 1,000,000 cards. He said 6.
I'll play.
Those are approximately the same thing right now. Okay, so he's got Daring Archaeologist and opt now for Javier Dominguez. But the Archaeologist is good here. It can get bigger. It's big enough to start attacking.
Yep.
That's a fine play there and a good threat from BBD.
Ooh, but
Party time.
Can it get through the 5/5 that's on the battlefield? That's a Partick Wanderer. So, you know, we talked about how Javier just absolutely needed just random creatures to win the game with. Well, I mean, you know, when you don't have access to some of the top end, you're just going to play what you got. So Partick Wanderer crunches down here. It is an artifact creature, synergizes with the Phyrexian Scriptures.
It does indeed. And it turns out a 5/5 synergizes quite nicely against a 3/3.
Yeah, it's a 5/5 trampled vigilance effectively with that will take servant on the battlefield.
That's true. Looks like it may stay home now, though, with the addition of the 2 Knight tokens from Call the Cavalry.
Oh, but here comes another fatty.
I heard him say kicker, and I knew what it was. So that's Academy Drake with kicker. It's going to be a 4/4 flyer, and that is now the most important card on the battlefield for Javier Dominguez because that's the card that can win him the game.
Right. Now, Brian does have, you know,
he got answers.
a handful of removal spells.
5.
Yeah. As important as it is, it will not, at least in this case, win him the game.
What is this?
Is it another one? It is.
Oh.
Twins.
Oh, and he's playing around the removal spell. I mean, Brian
That's
did
right.
pass with 6 mana
Well,
and
yeah.
a bunch of cards in hand.
Yeah, so he knows that he has Seal Away in his hand. He also knows that he has Vicious Offering, which
Right.
is something that he can't really play around. But he can play around Seal Away, although maybe he's just waiting for Syncopate. What are the other
Yeah.
things that he can do to interact?
Could definitely see that being the case here.
Okay,
Ooh.
this is interesting. He's going to attack in and kind of tempt him a little bit with the Seal Away. Oh, he's just going to use the...
Yep.
Man,
Javier's
I would have thrown a bunch of blocks in him. I guess that's BBD playing around Syncopate himself, though.
Right.
You don't want to throw a bunch of blocks
You wanna
that you
lose
don't
2
really want.
creatures?
Yeah. So Invoke the Divine is just going to kill the Partick Wanderer before anything happens. And are we going to see Phyrexian Scriptures now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Javier has to think the coast is a little more clear, right? Brian did use that Invoke the Divine, so very unlikely for him to have a second copy. So now he's clearing the way here. He's got a very, very solid attack next turn.
Boy, he really wishes he had that Partick Wanderer still.
Yeah.
The super combo with Phyrexian Scriptures. But instead, he's going to have to settle for, once again, just a huge flying Drake. But things get interesting from here, because even if this all goes according to plan for Dominguez, he won't be able to start attacking with the Drake because of the Seal Away. He's just going to have to sit on it, at least for a while.
Right. So BBD, knowing that he's going to lose all of his creatures to the Scriptures, again, attacking with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Although this, I guess, I mean, this Scriptures is okay. It does play around Reproach, but he is just losing one of his Academy Drakes,
Like,
right?
outright.
He's just losing one. Yeah, that's
It's not great.
yeah, that is not that's a big loss. And he's not. It's not like he's also killing any meaningful
Relevant.
creature
Yeah,
on the battlefield.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure.
4 to this.
Oh, yeah, okay, well.
Well, huh. So
Why?
Why-
So what is so what happened is here he used the Gideon's Reproach to kill the Academy Drake, but it was
It's
gonna
gonna die.
anyway.
Yeah. Why is this guy dead? The 3-3? Ah, 4-4. Okay. Yeah. You should
Yes,
have
it's-
more,
why
right?
did he?
The archaeologist. Yeah,
It's correct.
It's correct.
correct. Okay.
Yep.
You're following it. That's fine. Oh.
And now we're gonna see, yeah, puzzling plays there
Yeah.
during that combat step. But in the meantime, Javier is now going to offer up the seal away, and BBD. You saw he kind of was like, well, you know, I have this,
Right.
but it looks like Javier is okay with just letting that happen.
Okay. And I guess Javier is now setting up for the Drake, return the Drake with a memorial on the following turn.
Yeah.
That's going to be what he's going to be going for. No.
Okay, we lied.
No. But what is he saving the memorial for? Does he really need? He might really want that second black source. Although he's not doing anything, so I would have wanted to play an Academy Drake. I think.
You just get rolling with the Academy Drake as well.
Yeah, and you do have a bunch of swamps still in your deck.
2-4.
Although now he's not winning that race anyway because he's going to start gaining 2 life a turn from this Mesa Unicorn.
Very interesting. What did he draw there?
I think he drew a Homerid Explorer.
Is he going to target Brian? Just go for the mill?
Game plan A. Then it dies. He gets it
I
back.
mean, I
with
think he
Falling
has his best
Deluge
creature in
again.
his grave. I guess he has Kazarov in his deck. Oh,
Speaking of,
okay.
Kazarov is now in his graveyard, and it's ripe for the picking.
So he's going to look to get that back. He's got 2 mountains on the battlefield, and he has enough mana for 2 activations once that Kazarov hits play.
Yeah. So, again, we're going to be facing a critical juncture where Javier Dominguez is going to be able to get back and then cast Kazarov. Although, did I speak too soon? Does he have enough mana for this?
Oh, no, he doesn't have that second
needs
black.
another
right? He
black
needs
source.
black mana, right, of course.
What is going on here? I guess his mana really is pretty brutal.
Yeah. Although at this point you would have thought that he would have found an extra black source because he's looked at more than half his deck at this point.
Doesn't have one in his hand right now,
Yeah.
though. There is that top of the library. Won't matter at this point, though. He can find it now or next turn.
Oh,
Bingo!
there it is. There it is.
Hit the swamp just the once.
Does he have? Okay, but he doesn't have the mana to get it back, or get it back and play it this turn. Of course, he's 1 black mana short, but he's gonna just he can do it next turn. Now, does he have access to 11 mana after that to cast it and activate? No, he's 1 mana short, unless he draws a land.
He did not. But now this plan starts to come to fruition here, Paul. He's going to use the Memorial to Folly to get back Kazarov. He can now cast it. He's actually considering if he'd rather wait.
Right.
I mean, it's a reasonable consideration because if your Kazarov dies right away, you'd much rather have the chance to get the value. And he's going to do so.
Wow, playing it patiently.
Very patient. I mean, what is he worried about, right?
Brian doesn't have a whole lot of pressure.
No.
Self-replicator.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, he's got
Mishra's
his own.
Self-Replicator.
How does Brian and Greg Orange just have the exact
The
same
full-on
deck?
mirror, seriously.
Just like the same rares.
Yeah, well, this is tough business now because now Dominguez gets to just kill the self-replicator.
Oh, and he drew
straight
the
away.
land.
Yeah, he did, right off the top.
Yep.
Bingo.
There
Do
it
it
is.
now. Ooh, he's going to let him untap.
Yeah, I mean, there's no instant speed way to trigger it, I suppose.
Okay, so you just upkeep it? Sure.
Yeah.
I'll sack it to Vicious Offer.
Oh, and he knows about the Vicious Offering, of course.
He does know about the Vicious Offering. That's true. That was, in fact, the last card that he knew about.
Right. So now Javier still does have a Rona in hand. So if he draws a black source, he can actually play Rona and play... Oh, and he's so... Yeah, look at how excited he was to draw that swamp.
So clean.
He's like, yep, I'm going to do this and just get the Kazarov and play it again.
Yeah,
Yep.
And BBD might be out of answers at this point. Let's
that's
take a look at
right.
his
Yeah,
hand.
Kazarov's actually fairly tough to deal with, especially if Javier refuses to expose it to a card like Gideon's Reproach.
And this is just going to take over the game at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Dominguez playing for the extreme long game, just like he did in game number 2, and he is putting together a game plan beautifully. I mean, this is going to work. Like, he's just slowly squeezing all the answers out of Brian Braun-Duin's hand and leaving him with no choices left. And
just one
if the
counter.
last card you have is Kazarov and you have 12 lands,
Yeah.
it's game.
They're just
Right.
dealt damage at the same time.
I think it's 1, so.
I think it's one as
Yes,
well.
that's correct.
Okay.
Skittering Surveyor's not it.
Nope. It's just more fodder for Kazarov here.
Oh, yeah. Who's hungry? Sengir Pureblood is going to go absolutely to town on this board state. And again, Braun-Duin's just playing a bunch of 2 toughness creatures into it. If it survives, the game's just flat out over.
Right, right. No mountain there, but Javier still has 2 activations and choosing to fire it off now.
Yeah, Javier's deck's interesting. The mana is sketchy. He doesn't have a whole lot going on early, but boy, if he pushes his way into the late game,
right,
it's over. He has the inevitability that we talked about on our intro.
Right, he's got the top end, and not only that, even if his top end cards die, he's got multiple ways to recur his primary win conditions.
Inevitability.
You know?
I mean,
right.
Yeah, we saw him mill Kazarov, get it back, have it die, then get it back.
Right, exactly.
That could have easily
so
been cast Kazarov,
the Voltaic
get it back,
Servant
get
in the
it back.
graveyard
Yeah.
when the Hammered
Yeah,
Explorer
yeah,
was
just leave it
ordered
in.
first.
Yeah.
Okay, so and since then we went to your turn.
Yeah, but nothing relevant. The two creatures happen. So.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah.
See, Eric, our judge there, was asking a question about which order these things went to the graveyard.
So so Javier attacked. Braun-Duin double blocked with a 3/3 and a 1/3.
Yeah, so that should put counters on.
So they're trying to figure out if Kazarov gets 1 or 2 counters, because 2 of Javier's creatures, 2 of Brian's creatures were dealt damage.
Like the card.
I wish you had not.
It's a good matchup.
Yeah, we're gonna place the correct creature in the graveyard
Okay.
Oh, just the wrong creature got in the graveyard.
Ah, I
And
see.
then proceed.
and then proceed here. Yeah.
Looks like Kazarov picked up the 2 counters as well. Definitely should pick up 2 counters, but of course we got to make sure the correct creature goes in the yard.
Yep.
In the meantime, Kazarov's on a feeding frenzy. This is like me and Paul last night at dinner. Another one down.
I'm still full.
Yeah, and Kazarov has a full belly here as well with 5 +1/+1 counters, making it 9 power in the air. And that's going to do it. Javier Dominguez earns himself a 2-0 start in the booster draft. Hard fought. You know, he got ran over in that first game and pieced together really nice long-term game plans for both games 2 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, this is like proof. You know, these are the best players in the world, and when you look at Javier's draft, you're like, oh, this is a disaster. This is a train wreck. What's he gonna do? And still just being able to pull off a 2-0 to start off the World Championship, super impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And of course, he's going to be playing one more round with this deck, so he's just got to try to keep that mana stitched together for one more turn, or one more round, I should say, and try to get that elusive 3-0. Every win, of course, counts here at the World Championship for quite a bit, as the field, it's hard to distance yourself from a field this dense with great players.
Absolutely, and no player is going to give you any freebies, right?
No.
You're just going to have to just fight and claw your way. You can't give freebies either, and then just try to get there. And Javier, I mean, again, he's got power. He certainly has power in his deck, but it's just, will his mana cooperate? And in that match, it did. I mean, game 3, he was able to get Island, Mountain, Swamp on the battlefield, cast all of his spells whenever he needed, and curve out. And of course, MVP, Voltaic Servant.
That's right, the Voltaic Servant. The scriptures had nothing to do with that victory. So, one more shot there for Javier and the rest of our players to pick up that 3-0 in the booster draft as we kick things off here at the Magic the Gathering World Championships from Las Vegas. We certainly hope you'll stick with us. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more booster draft. We'll see you then.